Hello everybody, watching from home or listening from home. This is Yuri Navarro, and I'm here to help record one of the first episodes of the new ventureLAB podcast. And I have with me today Behrouz Hariri, who's the founder of Smart Nora, a company that I've been having the pleasure to work with over the last few months. And I think for today, what we want to do is just kind of go into the conversation about the company, the work we've been doing together, and kind of some of the interesting and challenging things that have had to be overcome to get where he is right now. And, I'll just say about Behrouz that he has a fantastic company and a fantastic product that I know is a real problem because I'm a snorer myself. I am a sufferer. It's the reason why I decided to help Behrouz when we first met. But maybe Behrouz, I'll let you kind of start off with explaining a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what Smart Nora does.
So it's fun to do this because we've had a few conversations, but never sat down to really record something together. My name is Behrouz. I'm a product designer by background. I'm a designer by background, and have basically inched my way into starting a company. And now I've been doing this for 7 years. So it has been a very interesting transformation, but my true kind of root is always in product design. I started doing basically UI UX work early in the day when that was just starting. So some of the first few apps out there, we did an app for TEDx Toronto that was kind of putting things in the scene out there.
Yes.
And then from that's when I worked at Jet Cooper that got acquired by Shopify. And I left right before that. I went to San Francisco. That's where I was going from, digital product design to a much broader set of problems that we were tackling there. And I joined IDEO.org, where we did everything that IDEO does. IDEO is a design consulting firm. They've been in the Bay Area since before the dot-com boom. They designed the Palm Pilot. They designed the first Apple mouse with the ball. So they've been in that scene. They started as a industrial design firm, and then by now they're doing everything from designing a banking service to designing a school system, to all kinds of shapes and forms of design thinking. So what we were doing with IDEO.org was designing for under poverty line situations. So in the developing context, I'll get maybe a little bit into that, and what I learned from 2 years of being jet lagged and working in 6 different countries. And then that was kind of an amazing design education for me, working with the best in the world, really, in terms of talent. And then I came back to Toronto, and we realized we have an idea for something that's really keeping us up at night, which became Nora. So we discovered that giving a small motion to the pillow is helping quite a bit to reduce the snore without waking someone up. And then quickly we realized we were onto something much bigger, because the snoring is connected to a lot more, like sleep apnea and so forth. And mostly in conversation with our medical advisors, we realized, okay, this is big, and it goes well beyond just kind of the pain point that we started with. And that's kind of the origin story of the company 7 years ago, which we'll get into.
Interesting. So, right off the bat, I think there's probably some things that I didn't even know about you necessarily, just in that little introduction. It's funny how sometimes you get down to business when meeting a new founder that you're mentoring, and maybe don't always take enough time to kind of learn their
today's
background.
problems. We talk about today's problems.
Yeah, exactly. Funny, but talking about TEDx Toronto and talking about Jet Cooper. I know some of the people that were involved in the early days of both of those companies. I would say that it's kind of like both of those organizations play a key role actually in the development of the tech ecosystem in Toronto in the early days.
Yeah.
And
it's like that was the time where you could wrap your hand around it. Like you kind of like, I can wrap my arms around this space and I know who's who.
Well, like so many of these
shifted.
people have gone on to do other things and build other things. You know, I used to know Andrew Peak quite well actually back in the day. And and then also name's escaping me right now, but the one of the co-founders of TEDx Toronto as well is a friend. And so, it's really interesting to see how these stories all come back together. And
I feel like we are all like that crew is now trying to inject new energy into the same ecosystem, because people have gone like it's a decade later, more than a decade later, and people are coming back with experience and whether it's and experiencing capital, right? Like it's like, okay, now what do we do now with like round 2?
Yeah,
which I think is fantastic.
It reminds me of something that I often say to people, which is like this. Building companies isn't about kind of discreetly just building companies in your own little bubble. It's about the ecosystem. It's about building the ecosystem as well. And almost necessarily you have the situation where as people learn things and they get new experiences, you need things to, yes, succeed, sometimes fail, but essentially get destroyed. Creative destruction, as the term has been coined by CDL. You need to destroy things and have the talent and the people and the experiences break apart and recombine and create new things. And so it's fantastic to kind of see that thread in your own life as well. Maybe just going into this a little bit more. I mean, what I'd love to understand is like why snoring. Like I understand that because of your product experience. It's something that you could solve, or like you could try to build a product around. Yeah. But DTC brands, there's a lot of them out there. It's a hard thing to do. Snoring is a problem that's been around for a long time. That there's a bunch of solutions out there. None of them are amazing. I can tell you, as somebody who suffers with snoring and is constantly being berated by my significant other about my snoring problems. There aren't great solutions out there. And so, what was it that made you think, this is a significant problem that I care about, that I want to solve, and that I think I'm the right person to solve this one?
Yeah. Well, I think it was just that we had solved it. Like that was really like, we were like, hey, we did something and it's working. But also, I'll answer your question from 2 directions. One is like, why this? We found that it's something that people see as a pedestrian issue. It's kind of a little funny in like the pop culture, and you kind of learn to live with it. And then over time, we're just learning so much about our sleep fragmentation, what it does to you. Just looking at the past like 6 years that we've been in market, that whole conversation has changed from something that like what's our parents' generation's response? Like, yeah, mom just puts up with dad snoring, and that was just normal. And now we have 2 breadwinners in the family, more likely, right? So mom can't be groggy in the next day presentation. Same thing for dad, because it goes both ways. And like, again, we think it's a male issue. It's not. Yeah. We just talk about it more, or we're more comfortable talking about it, which hopefully will change that as well. But it all comes down to basically breathing. And I think we have a very interesting conversation about breathing and health, and it connects to meditation, mindfulness. It connects to breathing during sleep. So we see ourselves now as a breathing company. We're here to help you with breathing. Yes, we primarily right now help you do that during night, but we know that it really changes the rest of your life. So even our mobile app that we're bringing out, we actually have a breathwork module in there as well. So connect all of those ideas. So now, why did we start with snoring? Because it was the most annoying part of it, and we could solve it. So once we realized that creating this very gentle motion in the pillow is all you need, but nobody has the patience to do it, it was very clear, like, okay, let's automate it. Let's make something that can listen more carefully and can be preemptive in creating the motion in the pillow. So essentially, we have this window that my snoring is about to begin, but it's not loud enough to wake up my partner. And it takes you have sleep inertia, right? Like you're in a sleep, you're not going to just wake up. If something is not crazy loud, all of a sudden, you don't wake up to it. Your body is trying to basically stay asleep. Yeah. So we have a window to work with. So if we can be preemptive, then we are really taking care of the issue without bothering the partner. And then for the snorer who has the motion in their pillow, our brain is amazing at adapting to a new stimulus that becomes familiar. So when you move, you're first super aware of all the noises in the new bedroom. And then after a week, it's all normal. It's kind of fascinating how it all fades into the background because your brain has to scan for danger during sleep. So if something is familiar, then it's normal. It's fine. It's not the bear that has found its way to your cave. Everything is good. So I think it was just low-hanging fruit in many ways. And then we started telling people what we were working on, and in every room, like 5 hands would go up. Like, hey, me and my father-in-law and my uncles and all. I was like, okay, we should try this, and it worked really well.
I mean, it can have a huge impact on people's lives. So, I can say, again, from my experience, just some of those options out there. I think the way my wife put it was. When I looked into getting a CPAP machine, she basically said to me, I don't want Darth Vader sleeping in the bed next to me.
Yeah.
And so it was like, it was between my health and sleep apnea, and then like her having to deal with me having a machine basically pumping air into me.
Yeah. Which I'm going to say right here, because I think this is part of our responsibility. If you're using a CPAP and you can use it, keep using it. Right? It's just a very difficult thing to get used to. It takes a month or 2 months sometimes to get used to it.
Yeah.
But if you're already there and you managed to get used to a CPAP, keep using it. It is gold standard because it's positive air pressure literally going down.
Yeah.
And it helps. But 60% of people easily give up on it in a year. Yeah. So then there's other alternatives. And then our solution, again, to be clear, we sell it for snoring and we don't sell it for sleep apnea. But you can always talk to and we have multiple examples of this. People who have said, I'm not doing anything for my apnea. Let me talk to my sleep specialist. Let me talk to my doctor. And you can do it under supervision. But that's not the indication of the product yet.
Yeah, fair enough. And I guess just so people are like super clear on what it is, it's essentially a device that you put right now underneath your pillow. And it just sits there. And I guess it listens to you.
Correct.
And then essentially reacts. So when it kind of anticipates you're going to be snoring, it starts to move you, and it kind of nudges your head forwards that your body kind of like kicks into response and you stop that kind of function.
Yeah, we'll definitely give you some B-roll for this section.
Yeah.
So it's always good to see it. But the idea is it's always out of the way. It's always flat until we need to slightly move you, and then we lift and return your head back to the same place. Right?
Okay.
So that's the working principle of it. And then why are we better than a human? Is because our machine learning basically is optimized to pick up the first few breathing intervals that have that signature of snoring is about to begin. That's way before like our ears will pick it up when we are sleeping. And then the consistency is key. Yeah. Because like good luck getting someone to move your pillow that slowly all the way until the morning. At some point you're going to get kicked out.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, and I guess, it comes down to, this is a big problem that you're solving. So you have this big problem, you got something that you've created that you think can solve it. Then you got to go to market. I mean, you're now a company that has customers, that has generated revenue. You're stable in some ways. Maybe give us a sense of that. And then, talk about maybe a little bit about what was the hardest part of this journey to get where you are right now.
I would say the hardest part, the answer changes over time, right? Because what was the hardest part year 1 or 2, I can do that now with eyes closed, or we have the team and we have like the skills. I would say overall the hardest part was staying the course. Like I can say that now, having gone through COVID and the ups and downs of the market and all that. Staying alive is the hardest, and then the most valuable thing you can do is like you're basically extending your luck by being around to capture the next good thing that comes your way, and also kind of staying true to long-term thinking, where sometimes for 3 quarters in a row you have 1 quarter visibility into your runway, but you're doing it like a 9-month project. So how do you keep working on both and like ensuring that you don't turn your attention to just the short-term problems? I think that's the hardest part in terms of a founder's skill, and it takes practice. Like you need to go through some of these cycles of I can only see 3 months, But guess what? I've done it for now for 9 months in a row. I've only been able to see 3 months. So then I've had a 9-month runway. Like you actually just, it's like, it looks like 3 months, but I just need a couple of solutions, and this is actually not a 3 months runway. So I think that just takes lived experience.
Yeah. I think it's also like the being able to deal with the stress and the pressure of that situation. I mean, I think everybody goes through levels of stress, and, you know, it's very tempting to give up. Sometimes giving up is the right thing to do too, right?
That too.
Like, let's just be
And
clear.
you never know. Like, am I being a fool by just like extending the situation, or am I the hero because I stuck through?
Is this actually going to lead to something? And
Yeah.
like, I guess, you know, one of the questions is like, how do you know? Like, what are the things? Maybe that's a good way to take that question. Is like, what are the things that you looked for as a founder as you've been going through this journey to say, you know what, like this isn't the time to give up. This isn't the time to say, hey, you know, I tried, I did my best, it's over. You know, what are you doing to kind of keep yourself kind of honest and make sure you're making the right decisions as you push forward and persevere?
I think I had a bit of advantage on this because again, like in terms of my work experience, I got to go through rapid sessions of like watching things fail, and you develop a bit of an instinct around how to ask questions, what answers to actually believe. I'll give you an example. Like we had projects, they were doing a water distribution project in Congo. And we are a team from IDEO from California going down there. People are super nice to us because we are almost guests, right? And we're in a village. So we are really like, hey, people are visiting the village and it's an event. We're going to be nice to them. So we make these pamphlets about like how the membership is going to work and what's the benefits and all that. We go out and the team is like, amazing, everybody loved them. Like, no. Now we're going to train our translators to go ask the same questions. They came up like, it's shit. Nobody wants it. Like, there is like, you pick up all these things, and like as a rule of thumb, I never tell people I made this. What do you think? I say, I paid someone to make this. I'm not sure about it. What do you think? And that's where you get the right answers. So I think it's like having a little bit of understanding that failing sooner is like fail fast. Obviously, that's what it comes down to. But saving yourself the pain of putting more work into something that makes you feel better in the short term.
Yeah.
And really looking for that value at the end, like, are people willing to pay? I have the benefit of it as a D2C product, that as long as people are willing to pay, I'm probably making something that they like. Yeah. Probably will get a different insight from like a deep tech company that has been developing technology and hasn't had the chance to kind of see, test the market with it. Yeah. But we actually had that benefit from 3 months into the project. We had handmade prototypes that we're giving out to friends and family. And then we would go and ask them after a week, like, what happened? And they're like, can I keep this prototype? Yeah. I was like, this handmade one?
They wanted
like,
to keep it.
Like, I will pay for it. I was like, okay. So that, I think from the beginning, that was our North Star. Is like, is it worth continuing? Yeah. And then the other piece for us is the context of the industry, context of how we think about wellness, how sleep has become more and more central to it in the conversation. It has just all pointed in the right directions for us. So we've gone from where sleep study was a 2-night thing at a lab to now 1/3 of Americans have actually tracked their sleep for multiple nights using a commercial device. And the commercial device's accuracy has gone from the first Fitbit, it was super suggestive of how you slept, to now we're getting to above 95, 97% accuracy. So you can actually, like, you're getting more useful information, let's say over a month of seeing someone sleep, than a snapshot.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fair. And I guess, like, from what you're saying, you know, the key thing that I'm pulling away is actually about listening, and actively listening. Like, not like sometimes I find that founders will get caught up in, you know, the resiliency trap, which is like, you know, I know that I got to push forward because this is going to be hard, and everybody's told me it's going to be hard, and everybody's told me just keep pushing forward. But also, like, making sure that you're not deluding yourself. You're actually like listening to what's actually being said, or like making an active effort to get behind what is being said to what is really meant, and understanding, you know, to your point, is this something somebody will pay for? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it could be really interesting technology. It could be really interesting, customer problem, market, all these kinds of things. But if you don't have that product market fit where somebody is telling you, whether that's they're actually buying it from you, or they're asking you, how do they purchase it? Not like saying, oh yeah, I would purchase this in a survey.
Yeah.
But like, how do you actually measure that they will actually buy it? Or like, best thing ever.
You literally measure it by getting them to buy it. Like, it's like that. I think that's the benefit that we have now. Like being able to crowdfund and being able to like, okay, like you can return people's money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you can pay 3% to payment processing, but like learn from it.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
And like the younger you are as a company, you can be more scrappy, and like people are just totally fine with that. But it's really like test for what you're testing for, really. Right.
Now, one thing I'll ask you just quickly on is AI. So I know that AI is part of the product and the roadmap for what you guys are doing. AI becomes like this thing where like everybody's hot about AI right now. Everybody's talking about it. Sometimes it's hard to understand kind of like what AI is there, or how it works, or how it exists, and how it's being used. I'm sure there's a lot of skepticism also in the market from investors. So like, I guess my question to you is like, how do you deal with the noise around AI, and how do you kind of look at the use of AI in your product?
I think I see it primarily for where we are as a mode of communication. Like we expect more from, let's say, our consumer software and apps, in the sense that this layer of everything being a dashboard and stats is quickly giving way to like, okay, now also tell me the insights and let me ask you something about it. In our space, it's pretty well contained. So we can, because we know what's the best practices around sleep, for example. Are you close to it or not? We can easily have a conversation with you like, hey, your sleep looks inconsistent. What should I do? Okay, let's help set you a timer for you. These are like pretty easy problems to solve. Yeah. And for us, it's very exciting because technology is like advancing and we get to incorporate it. So that's on a very, tangible product level for us. And then the other side of it is obviously kind of the big data. And like we are excited to be a source of data ourselves because we have a massive footprint and we have people like using the product every single night. And if they don't, their partner is going to remind them to use it. So for us, that's the second angle that's very interesting, is all the things you can do, especially around sleep, because it's a very standard behavior. Yeah. Very standard on a per person basis, but also overall, we all need our REM and non-REM sleep. We all go through these like almost 3 cycles of it every single night. It each takes about 90 minutes. So there's like so much that is great for pattern recognition already. And then any deviation from that, I don't know exactly what's wrong, but we should look into it. Yeah. So that's kind of huge value there.
And I guess that's where being a data collector, as opposed to buying data or using models that have been trained on existing data, really comes into play, right? The more you collect your own data and the more you're able to kind of look at unique outliers in the data, the more you're really able to understand the customer. Right.
That also, I mean, we get to interface with that specific customer, right? Yeah. So we can have an individual conversation. Right. But that's actually because, for example, sleep is a very, very standard behavior. Any other well-trained model is very useful to us as well. If somebody does the deep research of, here, we found the signatures of early Alzheimer's in sleep, it's very worthwhile for us to basically say, okay, we have the sleep data. Yeah. Let's collaborate with you and we'll add this as a value add. And I think we are the beginning of that path, because for the first time in history, we have this massive corpus of sleep data. And we need the time because the data wasn't there to create the correlation. So I think we are like 5 to 10 years out of that correlation happening. Now we have started tracking. Yeah. Now we're going to basically layer on. The tagging of that data has not happened to the extent that will be very accurate. But already we are seeing the beginnings of it.
Nice. Okay, and now so you're here. I mean, how much you got? How many customers right now? You got how much revenue right now? Like, what are you up to? Like, you're at a scale.
We're at scale. Yeah. So I'll share basically what we have shared publicly is that we have bootstrapped to more than 100,000 customers, which we love it as a story. We are capitalizing to go even faster. But to me, that speaks to in an environment that typically is hard to raise money for a hardware startup, we managed to actually kind of get our customers to help us to help them. And then the crowdfunding mentality from the get-go was super useful to us, and has given us that permission to actually test things with our customers too. Like we ask our customers a lot of questions where we're designing a product feature. We just send an email to 100 people and just like, hey, would you use this? Like, would you pay for this? And we just hop on a call with them.
Interesting. I guess that's the benefit of B2C is like you get to talk directly to your customer, right? And you know, I'm sure this has been like a super easy, smooth journey the whole way through, you know, just one customer at
just
a time.
Just do podcasts all like that. Yeah. That's all I do. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, like what have been the hardest challenges in getting to scale and so far? And then like, you know, I mean, now you're at a point where you want to try to accelerate that growth. Yeah. So what are the biggest challenges you also see in front of you?
Biggest challenge in front of us, I think, is understanding where the space, how it's shaping up in front of us. I'm really glad that we have really credible companies in the sleep wellness space on the consumer side. That wasn't the case 5 years ago. There was a lot of things that was gimmicky. And I think the friction of COVID and post-COVID, all that, there has been a bit of a cleansing in the space. And what has remained is great, actually. It's companies that we aspire to, the ones that are at scale, and some that are going to be actually really great partners for us. And we have a benefit of, we still see ourselves as an early entrant into sleep improvement market. There aren't that many companies that many products that are doing that in an intelligent way like us, that then also get data on the improvement they made, right? So I think we are at the end of the sleep tracking. Like we definitely post like the, what do you call it? The early adopter stage of sleep tracking. And now we are in the, you know, we have brands that are going beyond it, whether it's on the fitness side or it's kind of on the fashion side. Like Whoop and Aura are kind of spearheading those two. Exactly. So we're definitely well beyond the early adopter phase. And for each of those customer groups, we could easily basically improve. We could be the next stage. So we see that's the push now.
You see opportunities for partnerships and collaborations with some
for
of these
products
that have already some customer base, but like can't actually impact the customer. They can only track the data.
They're impacting differently by behavior, right? But then there's some things that you can actively improve.
Yeah. No. I was going to make a joke about shocking your patient in the middle of the night while they're snoring, but
that's what we don't do.
Cool. And so, I mean, going forward, you know, what are the key challenges that you think you need to overcome? So, like, you got your product in the market, you know, you got demand. So, what's stopping you from becoming like, you know, billion-dollar company tomorrow?
It's going to be capital and execution, honestly, I think, from where we are, because we would not be able, like, I think that's what I love about our story is like, we could not have done what we have done so far if there wasn't real benefit to our product. So that's like well proven. I was like, okay, now we just get to do a lot more of it. So I think it's building that next stage team is definitely a big part of it. Global talent that has done this at scale. So that's the conversations I'm having right now. And then the second piece of it would be getting the right capital to scale up with.
Yeah. And I guess, like, to what extent has, you know, mentors or those kinds of things played a role in your life as you're going through building this company? Is that something you have in your life? Do you have mentors? I mean, I know we work a little bit together, but even beyond just, you know, what happens at ventureLAB, like, are there people that you surround yourself with that have been able to help you through this journey? And do you see that as being a big part of your life?
Oh, for sure. I think every stage there has been a peer group and then someone that I know, like, whether technically or experience-wise, I'm like 5 years ahead kind of person that I'm asking questions. The peer group is where I think all the tactical resources come from. And I find that conversations with advisors helps me ask the right questions. Even if we don't come up with the right answer in those conversations, I go prepared to ask the question.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot to actually find the right problem, at least, right? So for us has been hardware club early on. Then we did on deck growth. We've been a Mars startup from the beginning. Recently, also working with ventureLAB. And then I have very key advisors from sleep, kind of across technical side, the business side, the regulatory side, and that's kind of my counsel of like getting wisdom and getting the hard questions.
Yeah.
And I think definitely plays a massive role. And at the end of the day, I think becomes more and more about getting not only the right introduction, but getting it from the right people. I think that really sets the stage for how the conversations unfold. So I'm increasingly paying attention on who I want to make the introduction. Sometimes I found it's better to go direct to someone. If you don't, like what's the path to a conversation is really important.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. It's something I always tell the founders that I mentor. It's like, first you have to understand kind of what you're trying to achieve and how to go about it. Find a lot of startups try to apply a cookie cutter approach to building a startup, or even like fundraising, especially. Like it's actually almost shocking how much you see founders that just try to do kind of like what they saw on TV or read in a book or whatever, and just repeat.
There's too much folklore.
Yeah, it's too much folklore around this stuff. It's a lot more targeted than that, especially for hardware deep tech companies. And so, part of this is like, how do you actually do this, and then how do you be thoughtful about it? So once you know what you have to do, putting the time and energy to figure out, to your point, like, is there somebody that I know that can make an introduction for me, or is that even the right thing to do? Like, depending on who the person is that I'm trying to reach out to, what do they like? Like, who are they as a person? Like, how am I solving their problems, as opposed to just, how are they solving my problems?
Good mentors want to be effective, because more often than not, that's not the thing that they're doing. That's like part of their time. It's like they're paying forward, giving back. So if you don't do your follow through based on what they told you, whether it worked or not, it's very important to report back. Yeah. Or when you get an introduction, just report back. This is the conversation we had. This is what I took away from it. This was a bad introduction. Yeah. Like, this wasn't a fit for this reason or that. I think you have to be very serious about having a job description for your advisors and mentors and giving them feedback. Like, they are your employee in a way. Like, you need to kind of, accountability goes both ways. And that's where people believe that, okay, you're taking their time seriously.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, a couple of quick fire questions here. Maybe, what's your favorite book about fundraising, and why did you like it?
So, I'm going to say Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, because I like it as a book around communication around money and value creation, and it's one of those books that really illustrates the correlation of time and money. Not only just like in business terms, but also like your personal milestones. And I find that's something that I'm learning more and more that matters to your investors. Like, where are you in your life? Why are you doing this? Does this actually fit your financial goals as a founder? Because it's way more true. Like, everybody should be actually after their personal benefit. And you're trying to find that match and that fit between the different elements. So if there is no compromise on any side and everything sounds like too good to be true, it doesn't seem real. It's not a fit. And I find that book does such a great job illustrating. It's like, understand your need, understand their needs. Where are you in your life cycle? And I think even understanding life cycle of a fund, for example, like, it's good to think of it in that way.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, I highly recommend it. I actually have it on my bedside. I haven't read it yet, though, but you're inspiring me to
it's a good one.
Up and read
it. What book would you say?
One of the books that I always go back to is Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Like, that is a fantastic book. Yeah. I always recommend it to founders who are trying to build something. I think some of the lessons in there are lessons that follow you throughout life, and whether you're applying it to fundraising, whether you're applying it to building a team, building a product, it's about making those tough decisions and like not waiting till the decisions become self-evident, because it's too late by then.
Yeah.
And so I've always enjoyed that book, and it's one of the kind of top 3 books I recommend to founders. Recently on fundraising, I recently read Secrets of St. Helo Road, which is another alum of Andreessen Horowitz. Eric Kapoor, if I'm not mistaken, wrote it. It's like the lawyer and, the operations guy in the background at Andreessen, the third founder that nobody ever talks about.
Right.
Talking about how the alignment of interests actually works in venture capital and how these kind of things impact all the way down to the founder and all the way back to, the big institutions and foundations and private equity and why things are the way they are. I think it's a really important context that a lot of founders are missing.
And it's a lot of it is precedence and convention rather than common sense. So it's like you got to read up on it. You can't just come up with it.
Yeah, and I think like some of the frustrations that come from fundraising come from a lack of understanding or a misunderstanding of how these things actually work. Because when you start to understand why investors behave a certain way, then you'll understand how to approach them, right? And what they're thinking when they talk to you, when you say something, what goes off in their head, what's that red flag you just raised?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things I think are really important to understand as a founder, because it's not obvious. It's not like just the typical kind of like things that you could say wrong. It's actually sometimes not at all something you're saying wrong. It's just, does it align with what they need? And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. And so I think understanding those things in advance is really important. Let me ask you another question here. What's something that you can't live without?
Ooh, nature, especially like just spending extended time out there. And I think that's just like my go-to to fix everything, really. And I think it becomes important to protect it and just create some, mostly it comes down to choose where you live and does it give you that kind of access that you need.
Yeah.
I found that it just makes such a big difference for my day-to-day. Like the pandemic was a great opportunity for me to create all these different routines.
Yeah, habits.
Just like being able to spend an hour at least under the sky. I was like, all right, that's just like a no-brainer now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's hard to keep up some of those habits too. I think I developed a lot of good habits during the pandemic, some bad ones as well, but keeping them up after is like, you gotta stay committed.
Yeah. But the good thing is you see the price you pay for them.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, then it's like burning out is very expensive, right?
Yeah.
So like, for example, like for me, that was like, once I had my serious burnout, I was like, this is really expensive. It's way more expensive than taking a vacation or taking the like 1 hour definitely off to go and like exercise and all that. And then it's like, you don't feel like you're negotiating. It's like, no, I'm just like, I'm investing in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I need my exercise. I need my time outside. That makes total sense. Cool. I guess, that should make for a good conversation. So I hope you enjoyed talking with me today.
This was fun.
Hopefully the people listening at home also enjoyed the conversation. I
think it's not people at home, it's people in commute listening to a podcast.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. If I'm listening to a podcast, I'm usually doing it in my car. So that's fair. Well, thanks for joining me, and look forward to our next conversation and hopefully helping you close your round.
Awesome.
I think it's exciting what you're building. We just have to find the right fit for the right investors, and we'll get there. And this company is going to be great, and it's going to solve a lot of problems, hopefully including myself.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't talk much about what's coming down the line, and we are still under that kind of press embargo, but we have a next generation product and all that coming down. So watch our space. Once you hear this, it's probably around time that you should go to stopsnoring.com and see what's that.
Exciting times. Yeah. Exciting times ahead. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, Behrouz.
Thanks, Yuri.
See ya.